The clatter of silverware echoes against the polished tile floor. A faint jazz track hums from an overhead speaker, barely masking the sharp voice cutting across the dining hall. "Sir, I already told you. We're full. You'll have to try somewhere else." The man standing in the doorway adjusts his cap, lowering his eyes as though shrinking into the casual polo he wears. He's just another customer on a busy Friday evening, or so it seems. But this man isn't just a walk-in guest. He's the one who owns this place. And the waiter who just turned him away? He has no idea his entire career is now hanging by a thread. Warm amber lighting drips down from glass chandeliers, giving the illusion of elegance. The air is thick with the scent of seared steak, garlic butter, and freshly baked bread. Plates clink, chairs scrape against the hardwood floor, and laughter bounces between tables where customers sip wine. But just beneath the polished surface, something feels off. A hostess chews gum behind the podium, scrolling on her phone between greetings. Two waiters bicker quietly near the service station, shooting sharp glances at each other instead of tending to their tables. And tucked into a corner booth sits a man in his mid-40s, jeans slightly faded, baseball cap tugged low, fingers tapping against his glass of water as though he's waiting for more than just his meal. He is known to the world as Daniel Carrick, CEO of one of the fastest-growing restaurant chains in the country. But tonight, in this very location, Daniel is just another face in the crowd. No entourage, no shoot, no name tag. Just a casual diner, here to see how his staff truly treats people when no one is watching. His eyes sweep across the floor. He notices the smallest details. Sticky menus, ignored water pitchers, the tension between staff. He says nothing, because tonight, observation is everything. At one table, a couple raises their hands for service. The waiter walks past them twice, deliberately ignoring their gestures. At the bar, a young man complains his order is wrong. The bartender shrugs, muttering, "That's what you asked for," without even checking the receipt. A delivery driver rushes in, sweat dripping from his brow, only to be scolded by the kitchen manager for being too slow. Everywhere Daniel looks, there are cracks in the facade, but one employee stands out. Her name tag reads Maria. She's in her early 30s, hair tied back neatly, sleeves rolled high as she balances a tray far heavier than it should be. There's a faint tiredness under her eyes, but her smile doesn't falter. Every guest at her tables gets a refill before asking. Every plate is double-checked before it leaves her hands. "You're the only reason we keep coming back here," one customer tells her softly. Maria beams, but Daniel catches a flicker in her eyes. Gratitude, yes, but also exhaustion. The kind of fatigue that can't be masked by coffee. At the service station, Maria carefully arranges plates when the head waiter, tall, sharply dressed, smug, cuts in. "Maria, you're too slow again. Customers are waiting. If you can't handle the pace, maybe you should stick to diners instead of fine dining." "I've already cleared 3 tables while you've been talking," she replies, her voice steady but strained. "If I don't double-check, customers complain. That hurts all of us." He rolls his eyes and walks away, muttering under his breath. Daniel catches every word. Later, Maria approaches the kitchen to pick up her order. She politely asks the chef if the steak could be remade, cooked medium as the guest requested, not well done. The chef slams the pan down. "You think you know better than me? I've been cooking here 10 years. If the customer doesn't like it, tell them to eat somewhere else." Daniel's hand tightens around his glass. His disguise keeps him silent, but the storm behind his eyes grows darker. Dinner service grows busier. Guests are left waiting. Complaints rise, but the staff ignores them. The head waiter flirts with a group of young women instead of tending to his other tables. And then, it happens. Daniel himself raises his hand politely, signaling for service. His water glass is empty. His order hasn't been taken yet. The head waiter approaches, scanning Daniel from head to toe, casual clothes, cap, no reservation. "Look, sir, we're fully booked. We don't serve walk-ins who take up space without ordering." "I've been waiting," Daniel says calmly. "I'd just like a menu." The waiter laughs. "Menus are for customers, not for people looking to sit and loiter. Try the cafe down the street. They'll serve your kind." The words hang heavy in the air. Several diners glance over. Maria freezes, eyes wide as she witnesses the exchange. Daniel lowers his gaze, letting the silence stretch. The humiliation wasn't his to feel. It was a test, and the waiter just failed it. Maria rushes over. "Sir, please don't mind him. Here's a menu. I'll take care of you personally." She shoots the head waiter a sharp look. He scoffs but walks away. Daniel studies her closely. Her hands tremble slightly as she sets the menu down, but her voice remains calm. The night continues to spiral. Another customer storms out, furious about the service. The chef yells at a dishwasher until the boy nearly cries. And the head waiter? He pockets a tip from one of Maria's tables when she isn't looking. Finally, Daniel has seen enough. He rises slowly, removing his cap. For the first time, his eyes lock directly with the head waiter's. The playful arrogance in the waiter's face begins to crack under that steady, piercing stare. "You said this place was full. You said I wasn't worth serving. Let me introduce myself properly." He sets the cap on the table and straightens his polo. "My name is Daniel Carrick. I don't just own this table. I own this restaurant. In fact, I own every restaurant with this name on the door." The dining room falls silent. Forks hover midday. Conversation stop. The head waiter's face drains a color. "Why, Yuri, you're the owner," he stammers. "Yes," Daniel replies, his voice firm. "And tonight, I've seen everything I needed to see." He turns to Maria. "And you, Maria, you're the reason this place still has loyal customers. You've shown dignity, patience, and care when no one else would. Consider yourself promoted, effective immediately." Maria's eyes widen, tears threatening to spill. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." Daniel shifts his gaze back to the head waiter and chef. "And as for you two, collect your things. You're done, hey." Gasps ripple across the room. The chef protests, the waiter begs, but Daniel doesn't flinch. Arrogance, disrespect, theft, that has no place in my company. Tonight, you showed me who you are when you thought no one was watching. Consider this your last shift. Customers nod in quiet approval. As Daniel exits the restaurant later that night, the neon sign hums above him. Maria follows briefly, thanking him again, her voice shaking with relief. Leadership isn't about titles or suits. It's about humility, about seeing people, truly seeing them, for the struggles they carry and the dignity they show. Tonight, Daniel discovered the cracks hidden behind polished walls. He saw arrogance, cruelty, neglect, but he also found resilience, kindness, and loyalty in places no one else bothered to look. Daniel slips his cap back on, vanishing once again into anonymity. Because sometimes the greatest truths are revealed when the people in power choose to walk quietly among us. But Daniel's night isn't over. Just as he rewards Maria with her promotion, he uncovers something far more dangerous lurking beneath this restaurant's walls. A secret that threatens not only one location, but the entire company he's built. And this time, it won't just cost people their jobs. It could cost them everything. The night outside was cold. The neon sign of the restaurant flickered against the damp pavement as Daniel Carrick stepped into the shadows, pulling his cap low again. Maria had thanked him, the staff had whispered in awe, and justice, for tonight, had been served. But Daniel wasn't walking away with peace of mind. Something about the evening gnawed at him. The waiter's arrogance, the chef's anger, the apathy of the staff, it all pointed to a deeper rut. And Daniel knew from experience, when one location is sick, it's rarely the only one. He got into his car, turned the key, and just sat there. The engine hummed, headlights painting two white beams into the night. But his thoughts weren't here. They were crawling through the walls of that restaurant, searching for what else might be festering in the dark. He picked up his phone, opened the company's regional performance reports. The numbers didn't lie. This branch had been underperforming for months. Customer complaints were up. Employee turnover was higher than average. And yet, the manager's official reports told a different story, glowing feedback, stable profits, clean audits. Daniel's jaw tightened. Someone was lying. And if the manager was covering something up, tonight's encounter was only the tip of the iceberg. The following morning, the restaurant buzzed like nothing had happened. Maria arrived early, hair still damp from a rushed shower, uniform freshly ironed. She wasn't sure what to expect, After all, the owner himself had walked an undercover and turned the place upside down. But to her surprise, the head waiter and the chef were gone. Their lockers emptied, their names scratched off the schedule. The staff whispered nervously, unsure if they were next. Maria simply focused on her work, as she always did. She didn't ask for recognition. She only wanted to provide for her children. But for the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Meanwhile, in an office 30 miles away, Daniel sat across from his regional operations director, a tall man with sharp glasses and a sharper tongue. "Daniel," the director said, sliding a file across the desk, "I reviewed the reports. The manager at that branch has everything in order. The books are balanced, staff schedules are filled, customer metrics are, well, they are decent. Maybe you just caught a bad night." Daniel opened the file. Numbers looked neat. Too neat. The kind of neatness that smelled of bleach, scrubbing away stains that were definitely there. "I don't believe in bad nights when the culture itself is toxic," Daniel replied flatly. "I want full transparency. Payroll, expenses, supplier contracts, everything. And I want it today." The director hesitated. That could ruffle feathers. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Good. Let's see which feathers fall off when we shake the cage." Back at the restaurant, Maria noticed something strange. A delivery driver she'd seen many times before came in through the side entrance. But this time, he wasn't carrying the usual crates of produce. Instead, he hauled in unmarked boxes, heavy, taped shut. The kitchen manager signed off quickly, barely glancing at the contents, and whisked them away. Maria frowned. Why weren't the deliveries logged properly? She'd seen invoices before. There was always paperwork. But these boxes, no one wrote anything down. She shook it off, but unease lingered. That evening, Daniel returned, this time not undercover, but quietly, as though blending into the background. He didn't announce himself to the staff. He simply sat in his car across the street, watching. The restaurant gleamed under its neon sign, customers flowing in and out. But then, at 10 p.m., when the dining room should have been winding down, he saw something unusual. 2 employees slipped out the back door, carrying those same unmarked boxes, loading them into a van with tinted windows. Daniel's instinct screamed. Something illegal was happening under his roof. The next day, he called Maria. "Maria," he said, his voice low but calm, "I need you to trust me. Have you seen anything unusual lately? Anything that doesn't feel right?" She hesitated. I did notice something. Deliveries, unmarked boxes, they don't get logged, and the kitchen staff guards them like treasure. But I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I can't afford to lose this job." "You won't lose your job," Daniel assured her. "You have my word. But I need your eyes and ears inside. Can you do that?" There was a pause. Maria thought of her children, of the rent due at the end of the month, of the weight she carried every day, and then she nodded. "Yes, I'll help." The days that followed unfolded like a slow-burn thriller. Maria noticed more. Side deals whispered between staff, managers pocketing cash, food supplies disappearing out the back door. And worst of all, some employees were being forced to clock out early, but kept working unpaid hours to cover shifts. Daniel documented everything. Slowly, a picture began to form. The branch manager wasn't just negligent. He was orchestrating a scheme, skimming money, underpaying staff, and possibly moving illegal goods through the restaurant. And if this was happening here, Daniel feared it could be happening elsewhere. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Daniel entered the restaurant one afternoon, this time in full daylight, dressed sharply enough to be recognized. Conversation stuttered, eyes widened, whispers spread like wildfire. The manager, a stocky man with slick-back hair and a smile too polished to be real, rushed over. "Mr. Carrick, what an honor. We weren't expecting you today." Daniel's voice was calm, but each word carried weight. "I like to see things as they are, without expectations." The manager laughed nervously. "Of course. Well, as you can see, everything is running smoothly." Daniel glanced around. A dishwasher's hands were red raw from overwork. A server rubbed her temples, clearly covering a double shift. Maria moved quietly, As always, carrying burdens no one else seemed to notice. Smoothly, Daniel repeated, his eyes piercing. Interesting choice of words. He gestured toward the office. Let's talk privately. Inside, Daniel placed a thick folder on the desk, photographs, logs, testimonies, deliveries, missing invoices, unpaid labor hours. The manager's face paled. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. No, Daniel said firmly. You can't, because I already know. And soon, corporate will know. Authorities will know. The only thing left is whether you cooperate or burn with it. The man swallowed hard, his facade cracking. You don't understand. It's bigger than me. If I talk, I'm finished. Daniel leaned closer. If you don't talk, you're already finished. As word spread among staff, Maria felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. Change was coming, but change often came with fallout. That night, after the manager fled the building under escort, Daniel gathered the remaining staff. His voice carried across the dining hall, steady and unwavering. This restaurant will not be a place of corruption. It will not be a place where good people suffer while bad actors profit. From this moment on, every hour work will be paid, every delivery will be logged, and every employee will be treated with dignity. The staff exchanged glances, some skeptical, others relieved. Maria stood tall, hope shining in her tired eyes. Daniel turned to her specifically. Maria, you've shown loyalty and courage. I'm appointing you interim floor manager until we restructure. You've earned it. Applause rippled, hesitant at first, then growing. Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed. But Daniel knew this was only the beginning, because as he drove away, his phone buzzed. An anonymous message flashed across the screen. You don't know what you've started. Walk away, or it won't just be your restaurants that fall. It will be you. Daniel stared at the words, the glow of his phone illuminating his face in the dark car. The rot was deeper than he feared, and whoever was behind it knew he was coming. His grip tightened on the wheel. He wasn't walking away. Not now. Not ever. Because the fight had only just begun. The glow of Daniel Carrick's phone lingered in his mind long after the message vanished from the screen. You don't know what you've started. Walk away, or it won't just be your restaurants that fall. It will be you. He knew the warning wasn't idle. He'd spent years in business. He could smell fear tactics and false threats. This wasn't one of them. Whoever sent that message was connected to something far larger than one greedy manager skimming profits. But what? Daniel leaned back in his car, staring at the restaurant sign across the street. Families laughed at their tables inside. Couples clinked glasses of wine. Staff bustled between orders. On the surface, everything was ordinary. But Daniel couldn't shake the image of those unmarked boxes carried out the back door. The nervous looks between employees. The cash that never reached the books. This wasn't just mismanagement. It was a system. A machine. And he had just placed himself in its path. The next morning, Maria was scrubbing down tables before opening when Daniel walked in. He was dressed casually again, cap pulled low, the disguise he used when he wanted to blend in. She looked up, startled. "You're back already?" she asked, glancing around nervously. "After what happened last night, I thought maybe you'd keep your distance." Daniel shook his head. Distance is exactly what they want. They are counting on fear. But I need to know the truth. And I think you've seen more of it than you realize. Maria wiped her hands on a rag, biting her lip. You mean the deliveries? The boxes? Exactly. Who brings them? When do they come? Who signs? She thought for a moment. Always late. Always unmarked. It's not the usual suppliers. And it's not on the schedule. They go straight into storage. And then they disappear. Daniel frowned. Disappearing inventory, disappearing money. It's a pipeline. But for what? Before Maria could answer, a dishwasher shuffled past him, glancing over his shoulder nervously. His face was pale, eyes darting like a cornered rabbit. Daniel recognized fear when he saw it. He waited until the boy was alone, stacking plates by the sink. Then he approached gently. "You all right, son?" The boy startled, nearly dropping a plate. Yes, sir. I'm fine." Daniel lowered his voice. "You've seen something. Haven't you? The boy hesitated, his lips trembling. Finally, he whispered, They make us move it. After hours. Boxes. Heavy. We're told not to look inside. But last week, one broke open. Daniel's chest tightened. What was inside? The boy swallowed hard. Bags. Small bags. White powder. The words hung like smoke in the air. Daniel didn't need an explanation. Drugs. Being trafficked through his restaurants. That night, Daniel sat in his office at headquarters, the city lights sprawling outside the window like a restless ocean. His mind raced. If one location was being used as a front, how many others were compromised? How many managers were in on it? And how deep did the corruption go? He pulled up the regional reports again, tracing supply routes, delivery patterns, staffing rosters. The numbers aligned in strange, unnatural ways. Several underperforming branches shared the same suppliers. The same managers rotated between them, conveniently transferred whenever problems surfaced. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a network, and someone inside his own company had built it. Meanwhile, Maria was struggling to keep her head above water. Her promotion to interim floor manager had doubled her responsibilities, and while she was grateful, it came with new dangers. Late one evening, as she closed out the register, a man approached the counter. She didn't recognize him. Slick leather jacket, tattoos creeping up his neck, eyes cold and watchful. "You're Maria?" he asked flatly. She nodded cautiously. He leaned in, voice low. "Listen carefully. We know you've been talking. Keep your mouth shut, do your job, and maybe your kids stay safe. Understand?" Maria's blood ran cold. Who are you?" But the man just smirked, tapped the counter twice, and walked out. Maria's hands shook as she locked up that night. She wanted to call Daniel, to tell him everything, but fear for her children choked her voice. The following day, Daniel noticed Maria's silence. Her eyes were red, her smile forced. He pulled her aside. "What happened?" She shook her head. "Nothing. I'm fine." He looked at her carefully. "You're not fine. Did someone threaten you?" She froze, tears welling up. Finally, she whispered, They know I'm helping you, and they know about my kids." Daniel's jaw tightened. Whoever these people were, they weren't just stealing money. They were willing to use fear and intimidation to protect their scheme. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maria, listen to me. I built this company from nothing. No one is going to use my restaurants to hurt people like you. I won't let it happen." Daniel reached out to an old contact, Detective Harris, a seasoned officer with eyes that had seen too much in patience worn thin from years of chasing ghosts. "I need help," Daniel said bluntly. "One of my restaurants is being used as a drug front, and I think it's bigger than one location." Harris narrowed his eyes. "That's a heavy claim. Carrick, you have proof?" Daniel slid a flash drive across the table. "Deliveries, missing invoices, testimonies, everything I've gathered. It's enough to open a case." Harris plugged it into his laptop, scanning quickly. His face grew grim. "You're right. This isn't just sloppy bookkeeping. This is organized. And if it's running through multiple branches, you might be looking at a criminal syndicate. Cartel level." Daniel leaned back. The weight of it pressed on him like stone. A cartel, using his name, his restaurants, as cover. Harris closed the laptop. "We'll run surveillance, but you need be careful. If they know you're onto them, you're not just dealing with corrupt employees anymore. You're dealing with dangerous men." Daniel nodded. "I've already had warnings, but I'm not backing down." The next weeks unfolded in a haze of tension. Surveillance vans parked discreetly near the restaurant. Undercover officers mingled as diners, watching every move. Daniel continued to work quietly, pretending to be focused on expansion plans, while his eyes remained fixed on the rot spreading beneath him. Maria did her best to keep up appearances, but the threats weighed heavy. Notes slipped into her locker, strange cars idling outside her apartment, shadows that lingered too long near the playground where her kids played. And then it happened. One night, during a late shift, a delivery came in, larger than usual. The boxes stacked high, carried in by men Maria had never seen before. Their eyes were hard, their movements rehearsed. She caught sight of one box cracking open at the corner. A bag slipped loose, stamped with a symbol she didn't recognize. She froze. One of the men noticed. He stared at her, cold and unblinking. Then, slowly, he pressed a finger to his lips. Maria turned away, heart pounding. The next morning, Daniel got a call from Harris. "We traced the shipments," the detective said. "They don't come from legitimate suppliers. They're funneled through shell companies. And guess what? Those shell companies were approved by a regional director." Daniel's blood ran cold. The man he'd trusted, the one who assured him everything was fine, was at the center of it all. "It's not just one director," Harris continued. "We think multiple execs are in on it. They've been laundering money through your supply chain. Your restaurants are just the storefronts." Daniel slammed his fist on the desk. Years of building trust, building a brand, building something for families like Maria's, and it was all being used as a cover for poison. He stood, pacing. "Then we burn it down, expose them all, whatever it takes." But the network was already tightening its grip. That night, Daniel returned to the restaurant to check on Maria. But when he arrived, the place was eerily quiet. Lights dimmed, chairs stacked, and Maria was gone. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her car was still in the lot. On the counter, a single note lay waiting. She should have stayed quiet. Daniel's hands shook as he read the words. The fight had crossed the line. They weren't just protecting their empire. They were sending him a message. And now, it wasn't just about saving his company. It was about saving Maria. Rain tapped against the restaurant windows like a metronome of unease. Daniel stood in the empty dining hall, Maria's note clenched in his fist. She should have stayed quiet. The words echoed in his mind like a taunt. Maria was gone. His most loyal employee, his only inside ally, disappeared. He paced the floor, heart pounding. This wasn't just business corruption anymore. This was personal. And Daniel knew he was running out of time. Detective Harris arrived minutes later, trench coat soaked from the storm. His face was grim. "They've escalated," he said flatly. "We found Maria's phone ditched in a dumpster 2 blocks away. That's not good." Daniel's jaw clenched. "They took her because she knew too much. We need to find out who's giving the orders." Harris nodded. "We've been watching the shipments, the shell companies, the managers. But there's something you need to see." He pulled out a file, dropping it onto a table. Inside were surveillance photos, grainy but clear enough. Trucks unloading at night, boxes carried into the alley. And there, in the center of it all, directing with casual confidence, was a familiar face. Daniel froze. It was him, the arrogant head waiter from that first night, the one who mocked him, dismissed him, told him to try the cafe down the street. Daniel's mind reeled. The waiter, he was behind this. Harris leaned in. Not just behind it. He's the handler. He runs the drop-offs, organizes the shipments, recruits inside staff. Your manager took orders from him. And from the looks of it, he's connected to someone bigger, someone we still don't have a name for. Daniel's fist tightened. The man who had sneered at him, stolen Maria's tips, humiliated customers. That same man was orchestrating a criminal empire under his roof. Maria woke to darkness. A damp room, the faint smell of mildew, the distant hum of traffic. Her wrists were tied, but not tightly enough to cut circulation. She tested the ropes quietly, panic rising in her chest. The door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouette sharp against the hallway light. And then she recognized a voice. Well, the little waitress who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Her heart stopped. It was the head waiter. "You!" she gasped. He smirked, stepping closer. "Surprised? You shouldn't be. You thought I was just another jerk with a bad attitude. But while you were busy bussing tables, I was building an empire. The food here? It's just a front. The real money comes in little bags. And thanks to your new best friend, the boss himself, the spotlight's on us. Which means you, sweetheart, are a liability." Maria's voice shook, but she forced herself to speak. "Daniel won't let this go. He'll find me." The waiter laughed coldly. Daniel Carrick? Please. He's a businessman, not a fighter. He doesn't even know who he's up against. Back at headquarters, Daniel was anything but calm. He paced the floor of his office, adrenaline surging. Where is he holding her? Do we have eyes on him? Harris shook his head. Not yet. He's slippery. Doesn't use his real name. We think he's tied to a larger distribution ring, but we can't pin him down without evidence. If we move too early, we spook him, and Maria could pay the price. Daniel slammed his fist on the desk. Then we don't wait. We act now. Carrick, Harris started. No. Daniel cut him off, eyes blazing. Is using my restaurants, my name, my people. Is threatening my staff, kidnapping a single mother who's done nothing but work herself to the bone. You want to wait for a warrant? Fine. But I'm not waiting. I'm going in. That night, Daniel drove back to the restaurant. The parking lot was empty, the neon sign buzzing faintly in the rain. He slipped inside through the side door, moving quietly. The place was dark except for the faint glow of an office light in the back. He crept closer, every nerve on edge. Voices carried from the office. Shipment leaves tomorrow night. Same drop point. It was a waiter's voice, calm, commanding. And make sure the girl stays put until then. She's leverage if things go south. Daniel's blood boiled. He pressed against the wall, straining to hear. Another voice, lower, hesitant. Boss, what about Carrick? He's sniffing around too much. Word is, he's got cops involved. The waiter chuckled darkly. Then Carrick becomes a warning. Nobody crosses us and walks away. Nobody. Maria sat in the cold room, trying not to cry. Her thoughts were consumed with her children, who would pick them up from school, who would tuck them in tonight. She refused to let despair win. When the guard outside dozed off, she worked at the rope around her wrists. Bit by bit, she loosened it. She thought of Daniel's words. No one is going to use my restaurants to hurt people like you. I won't let it happen. She clung to that promise like a lifeline. Daniel returned to Harris with the information. He's not just moving drugs. He's planning shipments across multiple locations. And Maria is still alive, being held as leverage. Harris exhaled. All right, if what you say is true, we can set up a sting. But you need to understand, once we move, this could get violent. Daniel's voice was steel. Then we move carefully, but we move. The plan was simple. Surveillance vans positioned around the drop site. Undercover officers posing as restaurant staff. Daniel himself hidden in plain sight, watching every move. The night of the shipment, trucks rolled in undercover darkness. Boxes unloaded. Men worked quickly, passing crates from one to the other. And at the center of it, giving orders, was the head waiter, his arrogance now revealed as authority. Harris whispered through his earpiece. Hold, hold, wait for the handoff. But Daniel's eyes weren't on the drugs. They were on the far corner of the warehouse, where Maria, bound but defiant, was being guarded. Daniel's pulse thundered. He couldn't just wait. Not while she was in danger. He moved. Carrick. Harris hissed, but it was too late. Daniel slipped from the shadows, charging forward. The guard turned, startled. Daniel tackled him, knocking him to the ground. Maria screamed his name, relief and terror mixing in her voice. The warehouse erupted. Shouts, gunfire. Officers stormed in. Men scattered, weapons drawn. Chaos consumed the scene. The waiter's eyes locked on Daniel, shock flickering for only a second before rage took over. You, he snarled. You should have stayed a customer. He drew a gun. Daniel dove behind a crate, heart hammering. Splinters flew as bullets tore into the wood. Harris's voice boomed. Drop your weapon. Police! But the waiter didn't drop it. He fired again, wild and desperate. Before bolting toward the exit, Daniel scrambled up, chasing him. Through the warehouse, into the alley, rain pouring down like a curtain of silver. The waiter slipped, regained balance, then turned, gun raised again. End of the line! Carrick! He shouted. But before he could fire, a sharp crack split the night. Harris's bullet found its mark. The waiter staggered, dropping the gun, collapsing against the wet pavement. Daniel stood over him, chest heaving. For a moment, their eyes met, arrogance gone, replaced by something darker. "Faye, you think this end with me?" The waiter spat, blood on his lips. "You have no idea how high this goes." And then his eyes closed. Maria was safe. The drugs were seized. The staff who'd been coerced into silence were freed from Faye. For one night, justice seemed to prevail. But Daniel couldn't shake the waiter's last words. "You have no idea how high this goes." Back at headquarters, Harris confirmed it. He was just a middleman. Connected, yes, but not the top. Whoever's really pulling the strings, we still don't know. Daniel looked out the window at the city skyline, neon lights flickering in the storm. The fight wasn't over. It had only peeled back the first layer. And somewhere above them all, someone powerful was still profiting off his restaurants. Someone who had just lost their favorite handler. Daniel knew they'd come for him next. The city never really slept. At 3 a.m, lights still flickered in office towers, taxis prowled wet streets, and shadows moved with secret intent. Daniel Carrick stood at his penthouse window, watching the world below like a man staring into the abyss. The waiter was gone. Maria was safe. But the network was still alive. "You have no idea how high this goes." Those words gnawed at him. Who was higher? A shadowy cartel figure? A faceless investor? Or someone sitting in a corner office, sipping coffee, laughing at how easily Daniel's company had been turned into a machine of corruption? He turned away from the glass and picked up the file Detective Harris had given him. Names, numbers, a list of executives who quietly signed off on suspicious supplier contracts, all routed through shell companies. And one name, highlighted over and over, at the top of every chain. Richard Vale, Daniel's regional vice president. A man he had personally promoted 5 years ago. A man he had trusted. Daniel exhaled slowly. If the waiter was a handler, then Vale was the architect. And if Vale was the architect, then Daniel had been feeding the beast with his own hands. Maria sat in the corner of Daniel's office later that morning, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. She still looked pale, shaken, but her voice carried quiet determination. "You can't do this alone," she said softly. "Whoever this Vale is, he's not just some crooked manager. If it's tied to the people who took me," she trailed off, shuddering. Daniel nodded. "I know. That's why we're not going after him in the shadows. We'll smoke him out, force him to make a mistake." "How?" Maria asked. Daniel's eyes hardened. "By playing his own game. If he thinks I'm blind, he'll keep moving shipments. But this time, we'll be waiting." Detective Harris agreed reluctantly. "Vale's smart. He doesn't touch the product himself. He hides behind layers of people like your waiter. If we want him, we need him in the act." Daniel leaned forward. "Then we set the stage. Announce a surprise inspection. Make it look routine. Vale will scramble to clean house. And in the panic, he'll slip." Harris smirked faintly. "You're either insane or brilliant." "Maybe both," Daniel said. The plan unfolded quickly. Daniel announced a sweeping audit of all regional branches. Managers panicked. Deliveries were rerouted. Logs were rewritten. Employees whispered nervously. And right in the middle of it, just as predicted, Vale made his move. Surveillance caught him late at night in a quiet warehouse, personally overseeing the transfer of crates. Not food, not supplies, but bags. Dozens of them, neatly sealed, stamped with the same symbol Maria had seen before. Harris whispered through the earpiece. "We've got him. Cameras are rolling. Say the word, and we move." But Daniel held up a hand. "Not yet." He wanted to see Vale's face, to hear it from his own lips. He stepped out of the shadows, rain dripping from his coat. "Working late, Richard." Vale froze. For a heartbeat, shock crossed his face. Then it hardened into a smake. "Daniel, you shouldn't be here." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You're using my company to peddle poison. You kidnapped my employee. You've turned everything I built into a front for your filth. Why?" Vale laughed softly. "Why? Because you let me. You were too busy playing the benevolent boss. Too busy patting yourself on the back for giving second chances to waitresses and dishwashers. You never saw the real game." Daniel's fists clenched. This ends tonight. Vale tilted his head. Does it? You think shutting down one warehouse matters? Do you know how much money flows through this network? Do you know how many cops are already on my payroll? How many judges owe me favors? You can't win, Daniel. You don't even know the rules. Daniel stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. Then I'll change the rules. At that moment, Harris and his team stormed in. Lights blazed. Shouts filled the air. Officers surrounded the warehouse, guns raised. Richard Vale. Harris barked. You're under arrest for trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy. Vale didn't flinch. He simply smiled. You think this cage can hold me? I'll be out in a week. And when I am, Daniel, I'll make sure Maria and her kids disappear for good. Daniel's rage flared. He lunged forward, but Harris grabbed his arm. Don't. He wants that. Let the law handle it. Vale was dragged away in cuffs, still smirking, still certain of his power. Back at headquarters, Maria hugged her children tightly, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. Daniel watched from a distance, exhaustion etched into his features. Harris approached, lighting a cigarette. You did good tonight. Carrick, your company's safe. The shipments are done. Vale's in custody. For now, at least. Daniel turned. For now. Harris exhaled smoke. Men like Vale don't go down easy. He's got allies we haven't touched, accounts we haven't frozen. And the people he works for, the ones above him, they won't just walk away. You pull the thread, Carrick, and I don't know what happens when the whole fabric unravels. Daniel stared out at the city, neon lights flickering in the distance. He thought of Maria, of her kids, of every employee who had trusted him to build something good. He thought of the waiter's sneer, of Vale's smirk, of the poison that had seeped into the heart of his company. And he asked himself the question he couldn't escape. Had he really stopped the network, or had he just declared war on something far bigger than he could ever control?